space in your garage or workshop and is set up in no time at all. The legs fold up for transportation and storage and are very quick to unfold. The stand is remarkably stable, even if the ground isn't level. You fit your own power saw to a mounting chassis using quick-release clamps. You can also fit your router, jigsaw and planer using optional accessories. We'll show these later. Everything on the Series 2000 is quick, easy and user-friendly. So in about 30 seconds, you're ready to go with a high-precision, big-capacity table saw or a cross-cut saw for dealing with long, heavy pieces. An overhead router, they're great for cabinets and shelves. Another quick conversion and you've got a shaper table for professional edges on your furniture. And a jigsaw table for better control and visibility, or a finisher for clean, true faces on all your work. Need to do some rounding over? With an optional sanding disc, it's a faceplate sander as well. As you'll see, the amazing Series 2000 Triton Workcentre does all these jobs and much more. And it does them all exceptionally well.
So if you already have some power tools and would love to be able to use them accurately, safely and creatively, then have a look at how you can make them really perform.
Assembling the basic Workcentre takes less than half an hour and no special tools are required. We provide a comprehensive assembly and operation manual with lots of illustrations and a detailed step-by-step assembly video to make it easy for you. Fitting your power saw is also easy because the mounting chassis adjusts to suit all saws from 184mm or 7¼ inch to 235mm or 9¼ inch. While you can fit just about all makes and models of saw, we'll be using the Triton saw. It was designed specifically for bench mounting and has many unique features which we'll show you shortly. Once you've got the saw correctly lined up, a half turn of the clamp knobs and the saw can be quickly removed, if for some reason you need it for handheld use. When refitting the saw, these clamp bases make sure it always goes back into exactly the same spot. And these cams, for use only with the Triton saw, make the alignment and fitting process even simpler. First off, let's check it out in the table saw mode. So flip the saw upside down, fit the table and lock the chassis firmly underneath to stop it from sliding. It's as easy as this. Fit the safety guard using the quick action lock and you're just about ready to go. The trigger of the saw is locked on with the strap provided, and the saw and an extension cord are plugged into the Triton switch box. The Series 2000 Workcentre has a phenomenal rip capacity, from 0 to 620mm from the blade. That's over 24 inches. Quick action lever locks and highly accurate calibration scales make it easy and positive. You control the power from the safety switch on the front panel, and you've got a table saw with an incredible rip capacity. Large sheets of particle board or plywood are no problem, so you can make your own cupboards and wardrobes easily and accurately. When you're finished, no need to fumble for the switch. Just bump off the power with your knee. Notice how the two pieces just sat there after the cut, rather than tipping off the end of the table. Well, underneath the safety guard, two flexible pressure fingers hold the work firmly down on the table, during and after the cut. They're really useful when ripping thin or narrow material, because they stop the wood being lifted up by the back of the blade, and so reduce the chance of kickback. The see-through safety guard is mounted on a splitter to keep the wood from binding on the back of the blade, even if the cut wants to close up, as is happening here. When you're ripping narrow pieces, this excellent safety component slides on the fence and pushes the work through, keeping your hands well clear of the blade. It's safer and easier than using a normal push stick, and you can get into a very narrow gap between the blade and the fence. And it's very convenient, always to hand. Another great safety component clips onto your miter gauge. It's a flexible pressure finger that, when extended, presses your work against the fence. You apply the pressure just in front of the blade and then lock the miter gauge down to the table. What could be easier? With the wood being held against the fence and pushed from behind, you can safely rip narrow pieces with total confidence. By simply reversing the rip fence, you can bevel rip at 45 degrees. The adjustable guides at the bottom of the fence keep control of the workpiece and the offcut. You can cut pieces of any length up to about 500 mil or 20 inches wide. The instruction manual shows you how to handle even smaller pieces, and if you wanted an angle other than 45 degrees, or if you're working on an awkward piece, you'd probably convert to the crosscut mode. That's coming up shortly. The unique Triton miter gauge has 3 working faces with non-slip surfaces for better grip. It gives you a handsome crosscut capacity, about 350 mil or 14 inches wide. It's great when you're cross-cutting pieces of manageable size. With a Triton saw blade and a saw in reasonable condition, you can cut perfect miters without any splintering in most types of moulding. The second working face is exactly 90 degrees to the first one, so you can cut the reverse angle with the moulding sitting down flat, good face up. Much safer, a cleaner cut, and best of all, any 2 pieces cut on the adjacent faces will always form an immaculate 90-degree miter joint, guaranteed. Veneered particle board, a whole new range of cuts becomes possible, like edge rebating. You can make the rebate any size you like, depending on how high you've set the blade and your rip fence setting. It's so easy to put a strong, professional edge on anything you make with particle board, such as a table or bench top. And what a great way to neatly cover the crumbly edge of the particle board. If you'd rather use natural timber for a table or bench top, you could tongue and groove it. First, you make 2 identical rebates, working from the opposite faces. You always test your settings on small offcuts of the wood you'll be using. Because the rebates are identical, the remaining tongue will, of course, be perfectly central. To make the matching groove, move the fence out by the thickness of your saw blade and again make 2 cuts on a test scrap. Because the cuts are again an equal distance from each face, the groove will be exactly centered. The 2 pieces will then fit together perfectly. The mortise and tenon. Now there's another strong, traditional joint used in furniture making. The problem is that when cut by hand, tenons can take up to an hour each to make. With a Triton Workcentre, about 45 seconds. You use the fence as a stop, so all 4 faces of the tenon will be exactly the same length. The miter gauge keeps the work square to the blade, and the tip of the blade does all the rest. How easy is that? After you've machined all 4 faces, the result must be a perfectly centered and square tenon, and every one of your tenons will be identical. You'll see how to make the matching mortise in the router section, coming up soon. You have to agree, it's a great table saw. But there are some jobs that a table saw just can't do, or can't do very well. Let's have a look at how, in no time at all, the Workcentre converts to a crosscut saw. And it's a crosscut saw which will outperform most miter saws and radial arm saws. Every table saw component has a storage location when not in use. And because the power saw is clamped to a flip-over mounting chassis, it's really quick to convert. Because you'll be using the saw right way up, slide the table in and quickly lock it in position. The crosscut fence has its storage location as well, so it's always at the ready. And there you have it. With a Triton Workcentre, you've always got the right tool for the job. When do you use a crosscut saw? Well, when you're cutting long or heavy pieces to length, it's much better to move the tool, not the wood. Wooden sub-fences are provided, and the saw cut between them is great for lining up your pencil marks. It's comfortable, easy and safe, and you get phenomenal accuracy. Try doing that with a power saw handheld. And what a crosscut capacity! Around 500 mil or 20 inches wide. So it's perfect for bookcases, shelves, kitchen cupboards or wall units. And you save a lot of time. These 4 pieces will be exactly the same length because they were lined up and cut in one pass. Your work will turn out better and faster, and you'll enjoy it more. The crosscut mode is great if you're building a frame. Bevel cut the pieces 2 or 4 at a time. After you've cut one end, turn the pieces around, make sure they're still lined up, and cut the other end. The pieces will always come out exactly the same length. Provided your saw was correctly set at 45 degrees, your frame will be dead square. By simply feeding the wood in from the other side and raising the blade a bit, you can cut a spline groove. You'd then make yourself a spline or key, perhaps in a contrasting colour, and you've got another tight, professional joint. You can even bend a piece of wood. It's called kerfing. You make a number of evenly spaced cuts, but not cutting all the way through. It takes a bit of patience and care, but it's not difficult. And the results can be spectacular. You can use it for decoration, or you can reinforce it and use it structurally. The instruction manual shows you how to do it. You'll be able to build things that right now you probably wouldn't even dream of tackling. You can make it with Triton.
It is best to work on a table or bench, but if you are working on the floor, then slit open the carton and use the cardboard as an underlay to prevent paint damage. Lay out all of your fasteners and check that there's the right count according to the instruction manual, and prepare some tools. You get this little tube spanner in the kit, but additionally you're going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver, a 13mm spanner, and either a 10mm or a small adjustable wrench. Take a leg and a leg lock pin and arrange either of the end panels so that the leg bracket is near the edge of the table. Then experimentally fit the leg into the leg lock bracket, making sure that the leg bulges outwards, not inwards like this. It'd be a very pigeon-toed work centre. So have the leg in the correct orientation, facing outwards away from the work centre. Then take the leg lock pin with a spring-loaded ball, feed it from the inside of the leg through the second hole, and make sure the barrel is sitting neatly between the two holes, just like this. A little bit fiddly, but then by holding the pin in with your finger, you can slip it into the leg bracket and it should pop through the hole like that. Then you can take one of your longer bolts with a washer under the head, put it through this hole here, and then another washer on the inside and a nylock nut, and you can tighten it up. And your tube spanner comes in handy to hold the nylock while you tighten up from the outside. You can do these up quite tightly, not to the point where you strip the bolt of course, but do them up tightly so that the leg pivots firmly but without any rattle, and to the point where you can push the leg lock pin, move the leg up into the parked position and move it down to the lock position. Once you've got the four legs fitted, you can fit the base channels, and they simply go into the sockets like so, with the open faces of the channels facing inwards, and you get another of your long bolts, again with a washer under the head, pass it through this hole here, and then another washer and a nylock nut on the inside. These bolts and nuts should be done up firmly, but be careful about over tightening these, because if you do them up too tightly, you will deform the bracket. So just nip it up until it's firm. And repeat that at the other four corners of the machine. When you've done that, turn your work centre right way up, and then take one of your bearing channels and fit one of these flange nuts at each end. Make sure the narrow part of the flange fits into the narrow slit for it in the end of the bearing channel, and push it till it reaches a stop. Do that at each end. Make sure the cutouts in the bearing channels are facing upwards, and then put a finger over each end to stop the flange nuts falling out, and you should be able to angle the bearing channel into position against these flanges and then straight up, and it should just snap into position like so and like so. Hold it in that position until you put a bolt, the shorter bolt and a washer into each of the holes and into the captive flange nuts. You may have to get a screwdriver point and slightly adjust the position of the flange nut. No, this one's going in okay. and then just put the other one in for safekeeping before tightening them both up. Tighten these 4 bolts up quite firmly, but again not to the point where you're going to over tighten them. Next, lift each corner of the Workcentre and place one of the small plastic feet directly underneath the open leg in the correct orientation, and then simply push it home like that. If you get the plastic foot in the wrong orientation, you can just stick a little screwdriver in there and dig it out.